Hi everyone. Today I'm on a little bit later than usual, but today I wanted to talk about spirit guides. They came up in yesterday's connection, and I thought it would be a really fun subject. I don't have the greatest service the last couple of days. I feel like something about the weather or something, so I'm not sure how well the live will work today. But I wanted to discuss spirit guides. Yesterday we were talking about different kinds of apparitions, and somebody asked what's the difference between these apparitions and spirit guides. And so I thought it would be a great continuation from the discussion we were having. So spirit guides, let's talk about them. As far as I know, every client that I've read has spirit guides. A spirit guide's job is to anchor to you and work through you to help support your goals and missions in this life. So a couple of examples of spirit guides that I've seen are guides that help you be more bold. For example, if you have a very shy, reserved personality, but you've taken on a life and a mission that requires you to be more bold or expressive, then you might pick up during life planning, you might say, well, I don't naturally have this character, but I need this characteristic to be successful in this life with these goals that I have presented myself. And you would have options from different kinds of guides that can work through you to help give you that extra juice or sauce that you need to accomplish the goals in your life. So that is like one of the ways guides work with us. They can work through us and give us a characteristic or expression that we didn't really have naturally in our soul structure. Another way guides work with us is they can come through us to train a specific gift. So our physical body, our physical soul structure does not understand or comprehend or work with something that it has not physically experienced. So for example, just like here in our human mind, if we can imagine for a moment that a child for some reason is locked in a dungeon, never sees humanity, only handed food, doesn't really communicate ever, that child won't know how to deal with a strip mall or the stresses of life, or they won't know how to communicate with others. They won't understand friendship. They won't understand manners because they were not exposed to those things growing up. So very similarly, our souls only comprehend information we have physically been present for. Or we wouldn't even be here, right? If we didn't have to be here, if we didn't have to be learning, we wouldn't be here. So we are physically present here on Earth because we are experiencing Earth. So the interesting thing about our spirit guides is they take a gift they have already mastered, whether it's through, physical guidance, being taught on Earth, having a mentor, teacher, tutor, or learned in the astrals, and they work the gift through us. So essentially they anchor to our entity and they work through us to program our energy with the gift structure. So it's a pretty neat connection. Most of us have about 4 spirit guides. Our first spirit guide is born with us. We pick all of our spirit guides before we even come to Earth. They are very specifically a part of our life planning in the Akashic realm. They are literally spirit and guides. So it's a very basic term that expresses their job with us. Our first spirit guide is what I call first in command. This specific guide is made to help you manage life as a young child. Their basic job when you're very little is to keep bringing information back home. For example, they might be like, well, this change is going to happen as they're 7 years of age, and that wasn't really a part of the plan. So how are we going to change this plan and rework this so that this person is comfortable in this shift? How are we going to alter the future of this person and make the proper decisions to make up for the lack or missing piece that has now been free-willed into the equation that wasn't a part of life planning? So that's one of the jobs that they take on. So they spend a lot of time kind of away from you, making observations, bringing observations back, and really sharing information that way. as a child, most of us know that we are very dependent on our parents. So our parents get to make a lot of the decisions for us. Therefore, we don't need a lot of support and inside help. We don't need a lot of pushing it back and forth. But also, while your physical body sleeps, your soul travels. And everybody astral travels in their sleep, everybody. The reason why we don't remember it is because it would stress us right out of sleep. If we are not open to this knowledge or information, if we are not understanding of the different dimensions and beings that live in those dimensions, if we are not understanding of our astral travels and our missions, then it will literally stress us right out of sleep, and we won't sleep. Humans cannot function off of no sleep. Our body would shut down and we would self-destruct. So we sometimes choose to forget those missions and travels, knowing that it could negatively affect our evolution and growth here on Earth. So we all astral travel in our sleep. So babies spend a lot of time outside of their bodies while they're sleeping because they sleep a lot. Their bodies are developing. That's really a main point of their life. Around like 9 months, they really start trying to own their body, manage their body, and control their body. That can be really hard for them. And that means that they're spending more time in their bodies. And that means that they can be very frustrated and upset because it's really hard. It's like, hey, here's this vessel that doesn't listen to you, a car that nobody's taught you how to drive. You just kind of have to figure it out, trial and error, and it can feel very frustrating. Around 5 to 6 is when we really start having more critical thinking, and that critical thinking allows us to step out of our training. For example, a 5 or 6-year-old is usually at a point where they're entering school. They're making friends. They're making outside connections. And they have the ability to compare lives. So they know their life, they know their reality, and now they can observe and compare somebody else's reality. That is when our second guide comes in. The second guide is more of relationship understanding, about understanding presentation. So if it wasn't for our outside connections, we would think that our life was the only way people live. We would see us as a singular reality, that, if I was raised in a very abusive, cruel home, that is all I know, and therefore that is all I will continue. The beauty of external connections, it allows abused children or confused children or children in these very narrow structures to look outside of their reality and say, well, they don't live like that. Maybe I have a choice. Maybe I can do things differently. Maybe I have control over this experience. And that's when our second guide really takes play and really steps in to be our support system in whatever change we choose. So it removes us from this feeling of loneliness and separation into feeling understood. And a lot of kids at that point, if they're in a really abusive homes, a lot of kids in that point will kind of internalize. So they go inside, and really what they're doing is they're connecting to their guides and they're connecting to spirit because they're trying to find an escape from this reality that they know is not what they want. And it allows them to kind of develop a new way of thinking that will eventually lead to breaking those patterns when they are older. Now, the third guide usually comes in around adolescence, usually about 14, 13, maybe even 12. And the reason for this one is that is when we naturally start activating our gifts. So a lot of, we go through a lot of hormonal shifts, and this is really like on the other side of that mountain. So we have the spike in hormones and everything going on, and then spirit finally says, all right, well, we're on the other side of that spike. Now we can start gift evolution and activation. It looks kind of disturbing at first. At first, kids can, or I should say teenagers can be very confused. They can feel kind of dark. They can feel like they don't have control over their reality. A major way we start tapping into our gifts would be conscious astral travel. So a lot of teenagers are given the opportunity to be awake and aware of what's happening when they're traveling or expressing their gifts. But because of the hormonal spikes and because of the chaos of school and all the bullying and the negativity and how hard kids are on each other, it can be a very difficult, dark time. Because not only are you being externally attacked and bullied, but you have all these internal observations and emotions that you're having a very hard time controlling. So what happens is teenagers tend to absorb. So they tend to they don't understand their gifts. So they walk around very confused, and they tend to absorb all the energy from all these other kids at school, whether it be positive or negative, stressful or overwhelming, bullying or critical. and it gets so overwhelming that they usually shut down. Now, in the perfect reality, in the reality of Jasenia that I wish to create, at this point in time, kids would have the information at hand to develop their gifts properly, to protect themselves, to protect their boundaries, and continue evolving their gifts in a productive way so they wouldn't shut down, so they wouldn't be so overwhelmed that they get stuck in this kind of case of emotions and drown out their gifts and humanity and everybody else and go into survival mode. In the perfect reality, we would take this opportunity to evolve our gifts and understand spirit at this particular age. We don't live in that reality. We live in a reality where this information is very limited and very restricted. So a lot of kids from this age go into survival, which means shut the feelings down, shut the emotions down, shut the voices down, turn it all off, push through life, do my best to stay above water, and ignore everything else. Unfortunately, right, that is where a lot of us are. And then we get into adulthood and we realize that we've been ignoring our true selves for so long that we lost track of our goal and our purpose, and we have to kind of go all the way back all those years and rediscover ourselves and tap into our gifts. So it's really, really not helpful. So we could all have been opening up to our gifts, like really, really intensely using our gifts by like 14, 15 years old. And imagine where that would have set us up for, right, as adults, having all that information given to us. So that guide is supposed to be doing that. That guide is supposed to help us manage our gifts and help us open our gifts and help us kind of evolve into our adult structures. And around 22 is where we get our fourth guide. Our fourth guide is really about decision making and life planning. Usually, they come through to really manage decision making and life planning, and they bring whatever tools necessary for us at that time. The interesting thing is that I've seen up to like 15 guides on people. How many guides somebody has really depends on what their goals or missions are. I don't really even have guides. I call them a spiritual team. I have like a tribe of spirits that work with me all the time. As we develop our gifts, we might get more guides. We can take those guides sometimes take on specific gifts, structures, or specific goals, or jobs, or even organization. I've seen guides that help us simply organize information. Like me, I deal with thousands of clients globally. So I might have a guide that comes through and organizes that information. It makes it easier to recall that information. So when I'm sorting through my, my database, my internal database, they would just pop it to the surface. And it's so interesting because I could be around somebody. A lot of you know that I never actually meet my clients personally because they're globally. I just get a name and birthday and birthplace, and I read their records. So I don't ever really even see their face. I don't know what they look like. So I've had incidents where I meet someone in person for the first time and I have no idea who they are. And all of a sudden, I get this pop to the surface and I see all of the lives we did and all of the work we did. And all of a sudden I realize that this person is somebody I've clearly worked with. And then I introduce myself and of course they say, yes, of course we work together. So that would be a guide. That's a guide pushing forward the information. It's recalling the information for me. It's alerting me to my own database that they are busy keeping and sorting out. So we have guides that take on a lot of different jobs, a lot of really important, amazing, grand jobs. We do also have guardian angels. Guardian angels are spirit guides. Not all of us have guardian angels because, like I said, it's just another guide. But we don't have to be angelic to have an angelic guide. We don't have to be of the angelic soul group, and we don't have to be very religious to have an angelic guide or a guardian angel. And a guardian angel literally is just an angelic guide. They're just doing their job protecting you and guiding you. I always say that angels get more credit than the rest of the spirits because they're just so beautiful. So it's kind of like this beautiful glowing image of pastel gorgeousness with these powerful wings and halos. And we see them and we think that they are such beautiful anomalies. But they're just like every other soul group. Angels do incarnate. They are a soul group like every other soul group. They're actually the largest soul group currently incarnated on Earth. So when people treat them like they're an anomaly or some, strange rare occurrence, that would be false. They actually are tons of them everywhere. I have personally had a lot of angelic clients. It's not associated with any particular religion. I think that because a soul group is so large, because of their very powerful, peaceful energy, because of their absolute beauty, they have inspired a lot of art and creative thinking and a lot of stories in their image throughout history. So we associate them with a lot of things that aren't always very true. And the angelic soul group is one of the largest soul groups currently incarnated here on earth. So we do have, and then they are spirit guides too. Many times an angelic spirit guide will come through with somebody it cares about, somebody it's incarnated with, somebody who is a part of their soul family. A soul family is different than a soul group. A soul group would be all angelic beings are in the same soul group. A soul family is more like your graduating class in high school. You've started this earth experience at the same time. You might have a lot of lives together. They might have a lot of experiences and a lot of overlapping lessons together and a very strong connection, but they can be of completely different soul groups. So that's what I call soul family, because you create a very strong bond with these people, which is why you don't need to be angelic to have angelic guides or take angelic guidance. Archangels are not spirit guides. They are actually ascended masters, and they work with anybody everywhere. They don't work with specific one religion or one belief system or one soul group. They work with everybody. Angelics and all soul groups currently working on earth are very involved with the evolution of humanity because it's their mission to, and they want to succeed. So they're not going to pick and choose who they save on this boat, right? They're going to try, if we're all in the same boat, they're going to try to make the boat float. They're going to work for everybody here on earth. So a major misconception is that archangels only work for certain people, but that's not true. They work for everybody, and they're never a spirit guide. They are, like I said, more like an ascended master, a powerful protector we can all count on and call on anytime. Another interesting thing is some people think that, it's very common in my sessions that people think that Jesus or Buddha are somehow their spirit guides. Jesus and Buddha are also ascended masters. So they teach classes in astral form. So a lot of us, when we astral travel, we'll go into a class and we'll be led by an ascended master that will guide us into some lessons and teaching. But they also are working for anybody and can be called on by anybody, regardless of your orientation, your religion, your skin color, your belief system. If you call upon them for help, they will come to you. That's just their job. That's what they do. Like I said, we're all on the same boat. So spirit guides are usually of soul groups that cannot physically incarnate here on earth on their own. Now, what's that mean? The video I posted yesterday that goes over the different kinds of soul groups, or I don't know if it was the day before that, but I'm trying to do a video every single day. And the video I posted before was talking about different kinds of soul groups and how not all soul groups resonate with Earth's energy. We have to have a very specific composition to resonate with Earth's energy. There are trillions of soul groups in existence, trillions, infinite amounts, more than we can count. And not all of them resonate here, therefore not all of them can physically incarnate here, but a lot of them want the lesson, they want the experience. This is a tremendous opportunity for souls everywhere. That's why we're here, that's why we're pushing so hard for it, that's why we've developed such an intense system of incarnation and support here on Earth. So these soul groups that cannot incarnate will sometimes instead volunteer for other jobs associated with Earth. Some include life planning, some include observation and information recall, some include transfer of information back and forth, some include sending souls down and, being a part of this process in other ways. Some include spirit guides. So those spirit guides can really truly vary. I've seen spirit guides that look completely different, that are incredibly unique, that on top of their first position, being, the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. On top of that, they have other gift sets and other structures and other purposes. They are defenders, protectors, they're creative artists or musicians. They are knowledgeable in strategy, or they are very organized, or they are very inspirational. They take on a lot of very important characteristics that we use here in our day-to-day. So a lot of people come to me with I do have a spirit guide report. It's Akashic Report 3A. It's on my website. Anybody can book it anytime, and they can learn about their spirit guides. It's last because a lot of times during the healing process, we activate gifts, and during gift activation, we get new guides. So I make it last because I feel like you might as well, do the other stuff and make sure all of them are fully activated before meeting them. But technically, anybody can book it anytime they want. But a lot of people come to me, and the first question they ask me is, why can't I hear them? Why can't I connect to them? How can I can't connect to them unless I know them and know who they are. That's not true. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to know who they are for them to connect to you and work through you. You have already given them permission. You have already asked for their help. You have already incarnated with them by your side. So you don't actually need them. You don't actually need to know them for them to do their job. They will always do their job working through you. So that is not accurate. What happens is the more that we heal, the more that we repair, the more that we activate our gifts and work on our gifts and really understand the difference between our mental limitations and our spiritual connection and our physical observations and our spiritual knowing, the more we do this, the more we realize we've always kind of been able to take guidance from them. We've always heard them. They've always been around. And we get so used to them that we kind of stop paying attention to them, because they're always going to be there working through you. They're always going to be there doing their job. I have had one incident that was very, very strange, where somebody took on so much trauma and their guides were so overexhausted, helping them, defending them, protecting their energy. And this is somebody who had like a lifetime of psychic attacks and was really, really battered energetically, where the guides were almost completely useless. They had been so battered and abused and destroyed that they were not really doing their job like they should have been. So in a case like this, I have actually found reasons and times where I had to kind of face Grand Council and ask for what we call like a swap, where it's like a position switch. So we take on another guide that can do the job, or we might take on a guide brand new that needs to help us. Like, for example, I've had a client who had a lot of trauma in the same place with the same issue, and it was relating to other people. And they had this massive past life that was so overwhelmingly traumatic that they repeated the pattern in every other life that followed, and it became such a habit that they just could not relate to people. As much as we healed the lives that passed, it was very habitual. So we had to instead take on a guide that could understand humans, that could connect to people, that could make her more personable and help her with these personal connections, help her digest her personal relationships in a different way so she could finally heal from it and move on from it. So it was an energetic training behavioral issue. And in a case like that, I took the evidence, we bring it forward, and the Grand Council decides that they can have another guide that will help support this goal. So a lot of times through this healing process, we can take on other help. It's just like praying on another entity or calling forward another entity. It's not really that complicated, but we don't know what we need unless we can see the damage and unless we see that there's really like no other way about this, no other understanding or connection. And, there are billions of us here on Earth, so a lot of us don't have constant feedback from these higher sources of spirit. After we're down here, it's kind of our job to manage our life. It's kind of like having any other job. You don't want people to micromanage your work. You don't want people to constantly be on you. If you're trained to do it, you know what you're doing, you asked for it, you planned it, then you have all responsibility. Your life is your responsibility. So many times, any traumas or issues we're having with our spirit guides go unaddressed because nobody's really checking up on them specifically. They're checking on you and you're connecting to them, but you might get checked on by your loved ones and everybody else, but they're not really going around asking your team, are you okay? How have you dealt with this? Are you functioning fully? Are you doing your job? It kind of happens at the end of the life in life review, where everything is laid on the table and they realize like, okay, well, you didn't complete your job. Therefore, you got to take a break to heal. You took on a lot of trauma. It's time for you to do this and do that. So it happens at the end of the life. We haven't had a lot of situations in humanity where we had direct connection or recall from specific life or trauma to grand counsel or life planning, because a lot of us don't consciously use our gifts here on earth. So a lot of us have not had the opportunity to find somebody who connect the two and make that call or pull forward that request for them. So it hasn't been something we are used to up until now. So things are actually shifting and being done a little bit differently this time around. And that's the purpose of evolution, right? Evolution is to change the way that things have been done, to find things that aren't working for us and to push forward new ways of being and living and connecting. So that's all I have today for Spirit Guides. Spirit Guides is something I discuss more deeply in my book, Spiritual Development with New England Psychic Medium, and in my second book that should be coming out soon called Creation. You can pre-order the second book on my website, or you can order my last book through the website too. And I hope you guys enjoyed the topic. Thanks for listening.